Ever tried growing grapes but thought you needed a sprawling vineyard or acres of land? You're not alone. A lot of gardeners assume grapes are just too big, too complicated, or require too much space. But here's the thing. Grapes actually grow incredibly well in containers, and I'm going to walk you through the complete process from choosing the right variety all the way to harvesting clusters of sweet, homegrown grapes right on your patio or deck. Plus, stick around to the end, where I'll show you a simple pruning trick that keeps container grapes productive for years, without them ever getting out of control. Let's get started. Grapes are one of the most rewarding fruits you can grow at home. There's something almost magical about watching those tiny flowers transform into heavy clusters of fruit. And the good news is that container growing actually gives you some real advantages. You can move your plants to chase the sun, protect them from late frosts, and grow varieties that might not survive winter in your zone. So let's start by understanding what grapes need to thrive. Before you pick out a grapevine, you need to understand a few basics. Grapes need full sun, at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. They need good drainage, because their roots will rot if they sit in water. They need something to climb on because grapevines are natural climbers. And they need a dormant period in winter, which is actually good news for most of us. Grapes are hardy in USDA zones 4 through 10, depending on the variety, so chances are there's a grape that will work in your climate. The key with containers is choosing a variety that stays manageable and produces well in a confined space. Now let's talk about selecting the right variety in the right container, because this is where a lot of people go wrong. For containers, you want to look for naturally compact varieties or varieties that respond well to hard pruning. Some excellent choices include Pixie Grape, which was actually bred for containers and stays around 3 feet tall. Somerset Seedless is another great option. It's a red seedless grape that's hardy down to Zone 4 and produces sweet fruit on a manageable vine. If you want a classic table grape, try Flame Seedless or Thompson Seedless, both of which do well in containers with proper pruning. For those of you in cooler climates, Marquette or Frontenac are cold hardy wine grapes that handle container growing beautifully. As for your container, bigger is better with grapes. You want at least a 15 to 20 gallon container for a mature vine. I personally use 20-gallon fabric grow bags, and they work wonderfully. The fabric allows air pruning of the roots, which keeps the plant healthy. If you're using a traditional pot, make sure it has excellent drainage holes at the bottom. I drill extra holes in mine just to be safe. One more thing on containers. Choose something heavy or plan to weigh it down, because a mature grapevine, loaded with fruit, can catch the wind like a sail and tip right over. Now that you've got your variety and container sorted, let's prepare the soil and get planting. Grapes like well-draining soil that's slightly acidic to neutral, somewhere between 6.0 and 6.8 pH. I use a mixture of about 60% quality potting soil, 20% compost, and 20% perlite for drainage. Some people add a bit of sand, but I find perlite works better and keeps the container lighter. Fill your container with this mixture, leaving about 2 inches from the rim. Now here's something important. If you're planting a bare root grapevine, soak the roots in water for about 2 hours before planting. This rehydrates them and gives your vine a much better start. Create a mound of soil in the center of your container and spread the roots over it like a little skirt. The graft union, that's the bumpy part where the variety was grafted onto the rootstock, should sit about 2 inches above the soil line. If you have an own root vine with no graft union, plant it at the same depth it was growing in its nursery pot. Fill in around the roots with your soil mixture, firming gently as you go. Water thoroughly until water runs out the drainage holes. The soil will settle a bit, so add more mix to bring it back to the right level. I plant my container grapes in early spring, right around the time forsythias are blooming in my area. This gives them the whole growing season to establish roots before winter. Grapevines are climbers by nature, and they need something to grab onto. This is where a lot of container gardeners get creative. You have several options here. You can install a small trellis directly in the container, use a decorative obelisk, train the vine up a nearby fence or railing, or even create a simple stake and wire system. I use a 5-foot wooden stake pushed deep into the container with 3 horizontal wires attached to a wall behind it. The stake supports the main trunk, and the wires give the side branches something to grow along. When your vine is young, select one strong shoot to become your main trunk and tie it loosely to your stake with soft plant ties. Remove any other shoots that emerge from the base. As this main shoot grows, keep tying it up. You want a straight, strong trunk. Once it reaches the height of your first wire, usually about 18 inches up, pinch out the tip. This encourages side branches to form. Select 2 strong side branches to train along your wire and remove the rest. This might feel brutal, but trust me, fewer branches means better fruit. By the way, if you're finding this helpful so far, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. All right, let's keep going with care and maintenance. Watering container grapes is a bit different than growing them in the ground. Containers dry out faster, especially in summer, so you'll need to check moisture levels regularly. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it's dry at that depth, it's time to water. During hot summer months, this might mean watering every day, or even twice a day, for smaller containers. I find that a good deep watering in the morning works best. Avoid wetting the leaves if you can, because damp foliage invites fungal problems. For fertilizing, I keep it simple. In early spring, when buds start swelling, I apply a balanced granular fertilizer, something like a 10-10-10, at about half the rate recommended on the package. Container plants are sensitive to over-fertilizing. Then in late spring, when the vine is actively growing, I switch to a fertilizer higher in phosphorus to encourage flowering and fruiting. I also add a thin layer of compost to the top of the container each spring. This feeds the soil biology and helps retain moisture during summer heat. Pruning is honestly the most important skill for growing grapes in containers. Without proper pruning, your vine will become a tangled mess that produces lots of leaves and very little fruit. Here's what you need to understand. Grapes produce fruit on new growth that emerges from 1-year-old wood. So you need some of last year's growth to produce this year's fruit. But you don't need much. In late winter, while the vine is still dormant, usually February or early March, depending on your zone, you'll do your main pruning. Look at the canes that grew last year. Select 2 to 4 of the healthiest ones and cut them back to about 5 to 8 buds each. Remove everything else. Yes, everything. Cut it right back to the main trunk or cordons. Each of those buds you left will produce a new shoot this spring, and those new shoots will produce your grape clusters. After pruning, your vine should look almost bare. That's exactly right. This hard pruning is what keeps container grapes productive and manageable year after year. Let's talk about some common problems you might run into and how to solve them. First, powdery mildew. You'll see a white dusty coating on leaves, usually starting in late summer. This fungus loves humid conditions and poor air circulation. The fix is to improve airflow by pruning out crowded growth, avoid overhead watering, and spray with a sulfur-based fungicide or a mixture of 1 tablespoon baking soda per gallon of water every week or 2. Prevention is easier than cure, so keep that vine open and airy. Second, Japanese beetles. These metallic green pests love grape leaves and can skeletonize them fast. I hand-pick them in the morning when they're sluggish, dropping them into soapy water. You can also use neem oil as a deterrent. Whatever you do, don't use those beetle traps near your grapes. They actually attract more beetles to your yard. Third, birds. Once your grapes start ripening, every bird in the neighborhood will come calling. The only reliable solution is netting. Drape fine mesh bird netting over your entire plant about 2 weeks before you expect grapes to ripen. Secure it at the bottom so birds can't sneak under. Fourth, pour fruit set where flowers appear but grapes don't develop. This usually means inadequate pollination or stress during flowering. Most grape varieties are self-pollinating, so the problem is often too much nitrogen fertilizer pushing leaf growth at the expense of fruit or water stress during bloom. Back off the nitrogen and keep watering consistent. Fifth, leaf yellowing between the veins while veins stay green. This is usually iron chlorosis caused by high soil pH. Container soil can become alkaline over time from tap water. Apply salated iron according to package directions and consider using rainwater or acidifying your irrigation water. The good news is if you follow the steps we've covered, you should be able to avoid most of these issues. An open, well-pruned vine with good airflow and consistent water rarely has serious problems. Knowing when to harvest is part instinct and part taste testing. Grapes don't ripen further after picking, so you want to wait until they're truly ready. The color should be fully developed, whatever that means for your variety. Green grapes turn yellowish when ripe. Red grapes deepen in color. The grapes should feel slightly soft when gently squeezed, not hard and not mushy. And most importantly, taste one. Ripe grapes are sweet with no sour or bitter notes. The seeds, if present, should be brown, not green. When harvesting, use sharp scissors or pruning shears to cut the whole cluster from the vine. Don't pull or twist because you'll damage next year's buds. Grapes store best left in clusters. Keep them unwashed in the refrigerator and they'll last 2 to 3 weeks easily. Now for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning. This is something that has made a huge difference for my container grapes. It's called renewal pruning, and it keeps your vine productive for decades in the same container. Every 3 to 4 years, instead of just cutting back canes, you'll select a new trunk from a sucker that's growing from the base and gradually train it to replace the old trunk. This keeps the vine young and vigorous. The old trunk eventually gets woody and less productive, but by training a replacement before removing the old one, you never miss a harvest. I've seen container grapes grown this way that are over 20 years old and still producing heavily. So that's everything you need to know about growing lots of grapes in containers. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And if you have any questions or tips of your own about container grapes, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and happy growing.